Well, that's a good place to start, actually, since you've been with SaskBarley. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to SaskBarley, kind of the 411 on Jill?
I come from a farming family and background and married a person with a farming background and family, so I still feel like we are farmers because our families still farm. And ended up going into agricultural economics at the University of Saskatchewan. My high school principal was married to a professor there. I'd never heard of it before that, but ended up doing my ag economics degree and really liked policy and trade was kind of my areas of interest. And took a little time off, went and did some work, went back, did a master's in ag economics, and ended up working in international trade with some Saskatchewan companies, and had taken a break from agriculture for my husband and I for our own business and missed agriculture. So an acquaintance of mine had sent me the job posting for SaskBarley, thought it sounded really interesting, thought it would be like a part-time gig. I started with SaskBarley in April of 2014, so it'll be almost 10 years, and it's turned into much more than full-time. Love every day of my job, love what I do, love working for farmers, and feeling like we're making a difference. So yeah, 10 years.
Well, speaking of making a difference, can you tell us what SaskBarley does, its mandate, its function, maybe some recent accomplishments?
Well, we are accountable to a producer-elected board of directors. So we have a board of 6 barley farmers in Saskatchewan. And the primary purpose is to increase the profitability of barley for Saskatchewan producers. So I think some of our big accomplishments in the past 10 years, the board had a very strategic direction to be investing a lot in research. So we have a strategic goal that a minimum of 65% of our expenses are invested in research. And there was also a big push when I started for variety acceptance in malting barley varieties. Barley has that problem of having a low variety turnover. And at that time, Copeland and Metcalf were the dominant varieties. We have finally knocked Copeland off the top of the list. But I think that's been a lot of push by groups like ours with producers saying to end users, we really need to be cycling these varieties. So there's been a couple things that have happened. We have a malting barley variety acceptance committee now through the Canadian Malting Barley Technical Centre and the Brewing and Malting Barley Research Institute. And I think we have end users really starting to understand why it's so important to be getting new varieties out to growers and having end users accept them.
Yeah, that's something I've written a lot about, is how we can spur the adoption of new varieties. Being Seed World magazine, we're very concerned with, barley varieties, like I say, increasing that turnover so that you don't have, varieties like Copeland Metcalf being on the market for years and years, so that we can have those new varieties come up. And do you have any thoughts on how can we do that? How can we do a better job of spurring that adoption?
Well, I think we've made some progress in the past. Variety turnover takes a long time. We have to get new varieties in the system. They have to be expanded. We've got to get enough to be testing them both domestically and with our end users. So that takes time. But I think in the last 5 or 6 years, we're really starting to see a better system in place in Canada to make those varieties turn over quicker. The Canadian Malting Barley Technical Centre is a very strong driver of that and the work that they do. And then that work in turn has been supported by SaskBarley and the other grower commissions. So I think that there's a greater connection now between the end users, CMBTC, and it's becoming more commonplace that we're doing the trials, both at a micro scale and a plant scale testing to get the new varieties accepted. So I think we're going to start to see some change in Canada quicker. I'm not going to say that it's going to be ideally like where we want to be, about 7 years of a turnover, but I think we're going to be in that 10 to 12 year range soon, which is much better than 20.
Now, something that might help with that is a new initiative you have. You announced it this week at the Barley Symposium, Grow Barley. I did an interview with Mitchell Japp earlier. I understand that was kind of his baby, sort of his idea. I'm talking with Hiroshi tomorrow, who's helping lead the research on that. Can you talk a little bit about what Grow Barley is? I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, it is the first dedicated agronomy program specifically for barley ever in Canada, possibly? Is that true?
That's our understanding. We haven't been able to identify a previous program with this dollar value, with this specific focus on barley. So yeah, I give credit to Mitchell because he was the one that actually pulled it together. Our board had been talking about it for a while and what it would look like. And Mitchell had kind of came to the board with the idea and started to pitch it to the other grower commissions and to the Brewing and Malting Barley Research Institute. And it gained traction fairly quickly because the other grower groups and BMBRI really saw the value in a barley agronomy program. There's lots of other programs that look at agronomy across crops, but this one was set up to specifically enhance the barley agronomy where we saw a gap happening in research right now. We didn't have that dedicated person to barley agronomy. So we're pretty excited about what this program could lead to during the 7 years of the funding that we've got in place.
Yeah, the sky's kind of the limit when you look at all the different research being done. And what are some of the biggest challenges facing barley as a crop right now? I know we've talked about variety acceptance for malting barley varieties, but when it comes to things like, disease resistance, nutritional traits, different things, what are some of the biggest challenges that it's facing at the moment?
Well, from my perspective, the biggest one is to be competitive with other crop choices, to make it profitable enough that producers continue to want to grow it. So, there are challenges, obviously, standability is a big one. This past year, there were some issues with some pre-harvest sprouting just because of conditions. There's some specific agronomy challenges we want to address with that. But at the end of the day, it has to be profitable for farmers to grow. So I think that's our biggest challenge as a crop right now. And we have competing crop choices, obviously. And then we also have this issue of corn coming into Feedlot Alley right now. That's creating some pressure on the feed barley market. And realistically, we still have 70% of the barley crop going into the feed industry in Canada. So, we need to be realistic about those challenges. And we're working as hard as we can to keep barley a competitive crop choice for farmers to grow. We want it to be profitable. We want it to be a good rotation crop.
Of course. Well, and we're here this week at the PGDC meetings in Saskatoon. It was also a big week. You had the Canadian Barley Symposium, which you're also involved with the Canadian Barley Research Coalition, correct? Which was involved in organizing that. What was the big highlight for you?
Oh, well, the Canadian Barley Symposium had not been held in person since February of 2020. So the first time in 4 years. It was time that we actually got together again. So I think the highlight for me was actually to see the number of researchers we had across Canada. So the program was bigger. And also to see the number of young researchers we had working in barley. That was really exciting to see. I would say 4 years ago, I'm not sure we had as many researchers working in barley. So I want to say that because of the work the grower commissions have done and promoting more barley, that we've got a greater number of researchers. But it was pretty exciting to see the number of students presenting and the high quality students we have coming in. So that was great. And to see lots of old faces too over the past couple days.
So before I let you go, Jill, SaskBarley being a producer group plays an important role in plant breeding variety development. Barley growers pay what we call checkoff, and then those dollars are then allocated for things like plant breeding, variety development, etc. Can you talk a little bit about that, about the importance of those research dollars and kind of what they contribute to?
Well, I'm biased, of course, but I think it's really important. So we did a study, I think it was in 2021 now, where we had a professor look at the economic impact of the dollars from commissions going into variety development. And he found that for every $1 of checkoff invested in variety development, there's a $26 return to producers from variety development, specifically in barley. So we think the investment that we make in variety development is critical to the profitability of Saskatchewan producers. And that's a pretty good return on investment with that. Variety development, I mean, it's the key piece to profitability for producers. And I take it a step further, it's also a key piece to managing a changing climate, adapting to the conditions that we're facing, whether it be drought, whether it be excess moisture in some areas. We need varieties that can withstand those pressures too, and that comes from variety development.
Yeah, it's extremely important. And that's one of the functions of the Barley Symposium, is to highlight a lot of the research being done that's going to lead to something.
Yeah, and it was exciting to see some of the new technology coming out from the symposium, and the science, what the science is capable of and what it's going to be as we look to the future. So it's pretty amazing.
So thanks for sitting down with me, Jill.
Anytime.